Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Routledge and Dave Forrester with you to look back over all the action in the British Basketball League. Let's start actually in the FIBA Euro Cup, where London Lions were taking on Bakken Bears in Aarhus. And, Bakken won. Aarhus, yeah, indeed. Yeah, there we go. Bakken won 95 to 80. Lions had the first 6 points of the game, but actually spent most of the first half behind by sort of 3 to 5. Bakken just looked reasonably comfortable, I thought, in that first half.
Yeah, I thought Bakken scouted London better than any team I've seen all year. There was nothing for Dirk Williams, absolutely nothing, no airspace at all. There was nothing for Kajini when he came in the game, no airspace at all for him. Bakken had kind of a solid front court, but the perimeter defense I thought really impacted London. And whilst you kind of got the good Teague on Saturday in Russia, I think the defense in this game impacted him, and he played a lot of minutes in this game, and I don't think he necessarily made the right decisions at times in the game. I never really it always looked like Bakken just had a little bit more about them. They looked fresher. They looked more ready, as I say, and they took away some of the things that London had been living off. London probably in that level of competition, they don't probably have kind of enough third and fourth options to go to. You know, everybody has to play very, very well for them to win a game at that level. You know, and to be fair, in Saratov, everybody did play very, very well. And then back in, 3 days later, traveling from God knows how you get from A to B.
Via Moscow, one assumes.
And probably a few other places, I would guess. They didn't seem. No, you're right. They were a little bit flat, and I think that they're going to go. If they're going to win any games, they're going to go as Teague goes. You know, if Teague is going to start, I think he has to start. If they're going to win the games, they're going to go as he goes. But he ends up probably a little bit individualistic at times. And Kelly wasn't as effective in this game. And they haven't got John Williams. And it just becomes, it's a stretch for them all. I thought they were close.
11-4 finish to the first half, 14-2 start to, or run early in the third quarter, and it's out to a 16-point lead, 58-42. It never really looked like it was going to come back. They got to 8, I think was the closest, when Reese and Washburn hit a couple of threes, but the fourth quarter was entirely a double-figure lead. They never quite, and it was. It was at that point that I'm gonna be Mr. Points difference again. It was at that point that I was thinking, geez, they really need to get this down to as few as possible, and 15 is too many.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, Majowski's played well early on, but he's the guy, if you're backing, he's the guy you want shooting the little hook shots. He's the guy you want shooting the kind of the tough 10-footers and making lots of plays and all that stuff, because it means all the other guys aren't. In relation to the points difference, I mean, it's tough for them because they've played their 3 games on the road already. You know, and they've been, they played wonderfully well in Russia. You know, they really played extremely well in Russia. And they lost the game, but they played extremely well. They looked a bit out of gas at that level on Wednesday night, but now they have 3 home games. So they're not leaving the country again.
So let me explain the situation. I'll explain why I'm banging on about points difference, because Saratov won the other game 75-70. So Lions are now 0-3, but they are minus 43 on the points difference. So in order to qualify, they're going to have to get to 3-3. They're going to have to win all 3 games at home. To qualify at 3-3, it's either all 4 teams are on 4-3, in which case the second best or second worst basket difference at the minute is 0, and the third worst is +9. So they have to overturn 52 points worth of a basket difference in those 3 games through, or you get into a 2-way tie with somebody, and the other 2 teams are 4-2 or 5-1, and the opposite of that. But the problem with that is because Saratov won, they're 3-0. So the chances of getting in a two-way tie with them in second and third suddenly become a lot more remote. And it's actually the other two teams that they've lost bigger to.
Yeah.
So therefore, they would have to beat them by however many. So they'd have to beat Bakken by 16. They would have to beat Cheshire. I forgot how many they lost by, but it was a ton.
Yeah, multiple, yes.
Yeah. So
I mean, it may be that they've pushed their envelope as far as it can go. And it may be that the people who are running the club will look at it. It's kind of, okay, this is base camp, this is Everest, and we're at base camp, and what do we have to do to get past base camp for next year and use it? And that, I think, and of course they're athletes, and of course they're competitive, but I think the best thing for them is that the travelling is done.
Yeah,
I don't see them winning all 3 games at home. I just saw there was a little bit of intrigue at the end of that game. There was just a little bit of, not desperation, but almost kind of acceptance. This is kind of what we are. This is where we're at. And obviously he's only here for the European Games.
Yeah.
And so if any of the other teams need to win in London, I think they probably will.
Yeah.
But that's not knocking the Lions. I just think that they may have just reached the end of the line in Europe. Probably that shot in Moscow.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. In Saratov, that shot in Saratov probably is the one that broke their back.
Yeah, because 1 and 2 on the road, that gives you a chance.
Yeah,
it gives you a chance.
So
Darko Jukic with 20.7 rebounds, 5 assists. Juve had 16.
Coach's brother.
Oh yeah, indeed, yes.
Darko. They got Darko. We got Zarko. Yeah, Zarko probably not as good a shooter, but longer actually, but not as good a shooter.
Reese had 18 and 8. You mentioned Rajauskas had 18. Washburn 16 and 9. So let's stick with the theme of the London Lions on the road. The third game for them on the road in a week, in less than a week technically.
Yeah.
At Newcastle in the trophy, and it finished Eagles 70, the Lions 84. They started Will Neighbour.
Slow down. What you're saying is that they went from Aarhus to Aarhus.
Indeed, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yes.
Sorry, that's awful. It just came to me. Just before you get to it, full disclosure, the Friday night was my 16th wedding anniversary.
Okay.
Which
I'm assuming you went to the arena to celebrate.
You're assuming entirely wrongly. I did try, but I could have spent all the money that all the people betting on the under on my marriage. But there you go. So I've since Friday night, I've watched a lot of basketball, but I didn't watch any of it on Friday night as it was happening. It was a nice restaurant in Jesmond, actually. Have you ever been to Jesmond?
Okay.
Posh bit in Newcastle, the only bit.
Okay. So you didn't see it live, but you have seen it since. Is the
I did do a couple of
and happy anniversary to you and Mrs. Forrester.
Well, I think maybe for me, I'm not sure how happy it was for her. I did a couple of surreptitious sneaks to the toilet to check out the scores, but seeing 7-31 kind of put my phone back in my pocket. Anyway, go on.
So Neighbour started for the Lions, so that was a pretty big starting lineup for them. But as you say, they started really well. They were 25-4 up after 6 minutes, and they missed their first 3 of the game and made the next 7. They were 8 of 10 from 3 in the first quarter, which, when I say they started a big lineup, seems counterintuitive. But obviously, Neighbour's a big man, but shoots the 3-point well, and obviously they've got other shooters on the floor as well.
If you go back, you go back 6 weeks or 8 weeks to when the Sky game was on, and we're on here talking about that. Then I'm sure one of the things that raised at that point was I was very surprised in that game that London didn't go small. And what small means is shooters. Small doesn't sound like Will Neighbour, but small is Will Neighbour. They played basically with the 2 bigs on court almost the entirety of that game. Jordan Williams played a lot. Kelly played a lot. Tawier was in the game. Whatever. And the difference with Neighbour playing is immense, because the space that he creates for everybody else, it gives them a really, really modern NBA-centric 4-out 1-in offense. Basically, the 4-out that means basically anybody can catch and shoot. and the one in is Kelly, who is basically there to set screens, space the court, roll to the hoop, and finish at the rim. And you know, and that is why they were able to generate the looks that they were. But that's also part of that is that Newcastle didn't play any defense worthy of the name, because even if you look at the first three that they missed, Ramon Fletcher is guarding Dirk Williams. Dirk Williams cuts from the top of the key down to the baseline. Ramon Fletcher passes him on, I think, to Defoe, because Defoe's playing the four, obviously. So he's kind of got a bit of perimeter stuff going on there, because Peel and Defoe are in the game and they're not really sure who each other's guarding. Defoe points him out as Dirk trots to the corner, and nobody's anywhere near him when Dirk catches the basketball. Defoe points to somebody else. They set a little ball screen, a little flare screen for him. Reese delivers Dirk the ball. Dirk misses. Now that was one better look than Dirk got at any time at Bakken on Wednesday night. Any point in time, you go back and watch the play, you know, and just watch what happened, and see who's guarding him. What's the plan? You know, because there are two things that when you're guarding that London Lions lineup, starting lineup, you don't allow, and that is, well, the worst thing you don't allow is Dirk to get his feet set. You know, he's shooting. He's too efficient a scorer. So that was the one that he missed. And then after that, I'm afraid Isaiah Reese just picked them apart. Neighbour made a really tough one with, you know, Darius coming out at him from about 28 feet. But apart from that, these are standard. Then Newcastle, I think from memory, Person went on the, got a steal, Person went on the fast break, missed it. And then they came back down 4-on-4 with Person on the floor and his defender on the floor. And Washburn just dribbled into a 3-point shot with 4 Newcastle Eagles players standing under the basket and nobody stopping the ball. And, you know, that's so their transition D is also therefore pretty horrible. And it just kind of snowballs from there. You know, they didn't to be. To have a shot in the fight. To try and win the battle, you have to join the battle. You know, and then they didn't join the battle in the game. Not even when they got back into the game a little bit in the second quarter, they did a little bit, but they never joined the battle. They never got anywhere close to disrupting the opposition. And if you let a good shooter shoot, then the shooters are going to make shots. And so you're in trouble. Yeah, they made 7 in a row, but you know, every player who's playing for London is a professional basketball player, and whose job it is primarily is to shoot threes. That team, that's what they do. Yeah. And a pro player, if he's unguarded, he's going to make 70% of his threes if he's unguarded. Yeah. And that's what they did.
So, I mean, you mentioned the little run in the second quarter. Robinson hit a 3 at the start of the second quarter, and it was 11-39. Eagles then got 21 of the next 23. Defoe had 7, Fletcher had 6, Peel 4, and they got it down to 32-41 with 4:20 to go. But then Dirk with 5 points to finish the first half. It's 15 points at halftime. London have scored 50, and you think, well, there's not really much. Like yeah. No,
they can't win like that. Well, you can't. Look, let's be blunt. You can't beat London if you give them a 25-point head start.
Yeah.
After a quarter, you know, you can try. You can try. You can fight the good fight. You can do all of that stuff. But at that point in time, that team is too comfortable. Now, Newcastle's run in the second quarter was generated from what I could see primarily by the fact that London's bench was in the game, and London's bench hasn't really played much. You know, over the past, they've been traveling a bit, but they haven't really played much. And yeah, they showed a little bit of pride, but you've got 2,500 people in the gym, so you need to be, you can't be 40-11 at home. Yeah. Yeah, 50. That little run at the end of the second, quarter, you're right. You probably put the game away, but it's always going to happen. You know, I mean, Newcastle went on a run against London, but London are going to come back again. They're going to it's a game of runs, and you've given them too big a start to get going. And then in the third quarter, it was the same. It was you know.
They never got under 14 in the second half, so it's hard to see a comeback.
And you know, you look at the game at the end, and I think you look at the numbers, and Fletcher and Defoe have more than half of Newcastle's points.
Fletcher 19 points, 8 assists. Defoe 17 and 10. The shooting from Person, Johnson, and Williams, 2 of 12, 1 of 8, 2 of 11, a combined 5 of 31.
Yeah, it's unsustainable. And, you know, some of them are good looks, but sometimes they're not good looks. And the question is, are they, you know, generating enough good looks? My concept,
I
my
thought
concern
Person
is,
in the first quarter was actually just missing layups, or he was getting to the rim and getting blocked.
Yeah, but they were being that, you know, it's all right. You know, you always say attack the rim, be strong. But hang on, Kelly's 7 foot tall. You know, Will Neighbour is 6'10". You know, when Newcastle beat London 8 weeks ago, they beat them on a steady diet of Ramon Fletcher pull-up jump shots.
Yeah.
Because they were playing, London were playing drop coverage with a big guy under the basket when he was waiting for you to come in there.
Yeah.
And I didn't see the kind of the mental acuity or attentiveness to detail from those guys. You know, if you're a pro player and you're shooting 2 of 12 or you're shooting 1 of 8, then you're probably not getting to your spots. And if you're not getting to your spots, why aren't you getting to your spots? Is it because of you, the way you're playing, or is it because of what you're running or whatever? You know, if you're getting blocked at the rim, well, that, you know, you got to shoot a different shot. You know, Wes Person can shoot floaters, he can shoot jump shots, he can do what he wants. His decision making wasn't great. That's what struck me. Not finished his decision making, and you know, it's a continuing issue for them. You know, all these guys. You look at, you know, these Newcastle are shooting like 29% from 3 for the season. I mean, look at those shooters.
4 of 21 in this game.
4 of 21, so that's even less. So you're looking at, you know, last time in the league, Kyle Williams shot 42%. You know, Corey Johnson's probably one of the best shooters in the league, 40% guy, he comfortably. And in person, you know, look at his college career and his numbers in career, exactly the same. They aren't, for whatever reason, they're not getting the shots that they need to be getting. Even Fletcher's numbers are way down as well. So without that kind of outside threat, it's difficult to drag yourself back into games, but primarily they have to join the battle in its defense. If I was to say anything, I'd probably say they actually look like a team that likes each other a bit too much. They, you know, everybody, you don't see any particular dissent or anger, or you don't see any flare-ups. You see there's lots of fist tapping and chest bumping, all that stuff. But they lost 5 games in a row, so you know they need to stop liking each other and start finding a way of winning games. And if things have to be said, then they're going to have to be said.
Yeah, Jeff actually asked me, and he mentioned it on commentary about Newcastle losing 5 in a row. That's the second time this year, because they obviously lost 5 in a row in the cup, and now they've lost 5 in a row. The last time before that they lost 5 in a row was 20 years ago, and they lost 10 in a row in that one. But it just shows you it's an unusual period.
The last days of Craig Lynch.
It was, Craig Lynch. Dirk Williams 18 points, Neighbour 16 and 7, Kyler Kelly 15 and 10, Washburn 14, Reese 11 and 15, although he didn't shoot the ball particularly well. 14 of 33 from 3-point range, just to show you the difference in the percentage.
Yeah, but the average, they put 31 up a game, don't they? I read somewhere. You know, so you think, you know, they're going to put 31 up, you got to defend it. 93 potential points. So
let's move on to the Sky Sports game. Plymouth City Patriots 82, Surrey Scorchers 73, a first win of the season in the league for the Patriots. No Teo Ogundengbe, and I was chatting to him before the game, and he said, "Oh, I haven't missed that many games in my career, so it is a bit unusual." And I looked it up, and since 2015, when he went back to Surrey, he's missed 4 games out of 232 before that, which is quite an incredible level of durability. But he's going to be out for a little bit at the moment. He's got a bit of a hip problem, so they're trying to work out what to do with it.
Never looked like he was out of shape, Theo, to be fair to him.
No.
And he's one of the few that isn't disadvantaged by those tight shirts that they wear.
It's true. It is true. Not much in this. Yeah, not much in this in the beginning. You got Hamrick at one end, you got Antonio Williams at the other end, and they were just sort of, you know, feeling each other out in the opening quarter.
Well, Plymouth have actually now, and I'll say this, I was about to say this before what happened tonight, Plymouth have now got a proper BBL team. You know, their bench is Kofi Josephs, Elvisi Ducher, and Graham Bell. And then even Dejala Kundle to come off the bench and give you some minutes at the 5 if necessary. Now that's your bench, then you're a competitive team, you know, because it means that there are guys who are nearly as good as or as good as starting for you. And don't underestimate PJ and PJ's ability to kind of figure out what he's got and how to use it as quickly as possible, because to be blunt, he hasn't had much for the past 4 months. And what he appears to have done is to fill the gaps relatively nicely. I like Williams because he appears to be a combo, which is what they need. They need someone who can handle the basketball, who can take a bit of pressure and who can score the ball from the point, but they also need someone who can play next to LVC when LVC comes in. So you need those. That is a bit like McGill last year, when he went from point guard to shooting guard, and Williams kind of fits that bill quite nicely, albeit he is young. And it's interesting he started with Joe Hart instead of Kofi as well. Clearly that he likes the continuity and the consistency that Joe gives him, and likes Kofi's shooting off the bench. So they are a real, and Rashad's going to drop 20 on most teams. Which keeps you competitive, particularly the
at high 50%.
At a high 50%, and Rashad Hassan, scouting report is 3 words: no paint touches. You just don't let him touch it. If he touches a basketball in the paint, there's a high percentage chance he's going to score. So it's just no paint touches, and so they're good. Well, not good, but they have the ability to be good, and they have the ability to be competitive and to compete with most of the teams in this league. And PJ will not throw any games away. In fact, any games away. So they're going to be in most games. Sorry, they're short. And we'll get to it in a minute, but they're short primarily the point guard position. And I actually deigned to listen back to this lot with this game, to watch back this game with you lot commentating. Okay. I was quite interested to see, and I didn't repeat what Lasker says and all that crap. But I thought you guys did a really good job of being straight but fair in relation to some of their flaws and some of their issues. And Kieran was as well at half time, their shot selection. It's not great. But I think if you were going to break it down, you're right, the game was kind of meandered for about a quarter and a half. But the shot selection of the Scorchers was far inferior to the shot selection of the Raiders. And ultimately, that's where the game kind of split up.
Graham Bell then had 7 and Williams 6 in a 13-2 run. It went to 43-30. And the funny thing is, you mentioned the fact that we were talking about it. When we get into a 3-way conversation, it's usually because what's happening on court is not
compelling.
Not as necessary to talk about in real time, sort of thing. And this actually felt like a 25-point game. So we spent quite a bit of time talking about all of that. And to be fair, I spoke to Creon before the game, and we were talking about all the injuries that they had. And you do feel a bit sorry for them because they haven't gone 5-on-5 in practice. So it is tough to put some things together in all of that.
But it's also tough to put some of that stuff into the personalities of certain players that you've got, because you've got players for a reason. Now, you might not have brought a player in when you've signed him to fulfill the role that they now have to fulfill.
So
you may have guys who because you're short on bodies, are basically square pegs in round holes. So I have a little bit of sympathy for it. And obviously, there are guys down there, but they're, if I said Newcastle seems to be a team that likes each other, I wouldn't say that about Surrey, looking at their body language. There was a lot of, they probably led the league in eye rolls and kind of shoulder shrugs and kind of half looks over the shoulder to a teammate when a teammate's trying to tell them something, which basically means, I'm not really interested, and that's tough. Now, their issue, I think, primarily is point guard, because, Kalen is, he's a lights out shooter, but has played most of his career off the ball. He wouldn't say that he's a tremendously creative point guard for others, because he's small. It's difficult. Stanley Davis is a guy I can actually see in my mind. I can see the little devil in his head who's saying, "Go on, shoot this one. You can make this one. You just made one. You just made this one. Go on, we'll make it a little bit harder this time. Go on, you can do it." And I can see it, and you can see the good devil on the other side as well. Kind of talking with him, because you see him make great plays where he attacks the rim, see him be athletic. You see him, I'm not dissing him on the point and saying he can't play. He certainly can play, but his decision making is not what you need for your main point guard in the team. That team would kill for LVC. As somebody who can let all the other guys run around and just point them out where they're going. And you got a great camera replay on the first foul, and it was the first foul on Robertson. Robertson obviously committed 4 fouls, and 3 of them were illegal screens.
Yeah.
The first one, he got the foul, but it was Davis's foul because Davis went before Robertson got to the screen.
Yeah.
And Davis actually attacked as Robertson was going to set the screen. And you see afterwards, you see Robertson looking at Davis saying, wait the screen. You know, and it's on the replay. And you then have this situation where Robertson commits 2 more offensive fouls where he's kind of setting a back screen on the ball on the wing. You know, whereas guys going to the sideline where there's no real attack angle, there's no real space. The sideline's another defender, and you just think, what's he setting that screen there for in the first place? You know,
and why is he setting it at this angle?
Yeah, why is he setting it at this angle like this? You know, like he's jigging away in rock shots in Newcastle. You know, I mean, it's just nuts. And that was kind of a guy whose head had gone. Yeah. You know, and it's difficult because he's under pressure because everybody looks at him and thinks he should be able to do this, that, and the other. Yeah. But he's not getting to play much.
And he's also got a knee problem as well. It was obviously taped up.
And he's just you can see, you know, they as a team they drip frustration. I've never seen Martel McLemore, as I say, so many shoulder shrugs, so many eye rolls, so many frustrated looks, and it doesn't help when you're on TV because we get the close-ups. You know. And then it became in the second half for them, it became basically a litany of contested jump shots, some of which they made, some of which they didn't. So it became a horse at times. Apart from Hamrick, to be fair, Hamrick was excellent, and you guys pointed it out. You know, competitive, attacked, made shots. I still don't actually know what his position is, but you know, kind of played through all that other stuff. But everybody else, you know, it was that point, I think, in the fourth quarter where Jameson got a offensive rebound, 4 feet from the basket and tried to throw it to somebody else, 6 feet from the basket and turned it over and it went the other way. And it was just it was just so frustrating to watch from Surrey's perspective. I do think there is a team in there. I still think there's a team in there. I don't know if they're ever going to come out. I don't know if they're going to be able to get out of their own heads to come out. I don't know if they've got enough depth. Creon can't do anything. He hasn't got the depth to do anything. You know, if you're a coach, PJ can sit somebody down and bring on Raul Graham-Bell or Kofi Joseph or LVC to sort the team out. Creon doesn't have that. He has a bunch of guys who basically are individual shot makers and nobody to kind of link them together at this point. So I don't know what they do. I don't know how they get better other than trying to establish a little bit of cohesion with each other. And that might be practicing, it might be doing that type of stuff. But it's strange because at the end of last year, you know, they had a great bench. They had, you know, they had Evan Walsh, they had Cameron Hildreth, and all those guys come off the bench, they were ready. And in his teams, Creon's always had a point guard. If you go back to Chavis Holmes and you go back to AJ Harrison and those guys, even more recently, Quincy Taylor, Tony Hicks, he's always had really solid decision making moment.
No. You just sort of went a bit wobbly there, but decision making. I always had decision making point guards was vaguely what I heard through all of that.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's one of those things where it felt like a 25-point game. And I also got the feeling that if Plymouth had already won a couple of games, it would have been a 25-point game. I think the pressure of that first win sort of allowed Surrey to almost stay in the game. They got it down to 9 with 3 to play. But
yeah, Plymouth, I would agree with that. I think that's right. I think they've still got a bit of growing to do in that respect. Plymouth. But
they'll be better after this weekend for sure. So Williams with 25 points, 9 of 13 shooting, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Hassan had 14. Graham Bell 13 points off the bench. Ubiaro 13 as well. Hamrick 25. Davis 22 and 11. Jameson 10 points and only 14 rebounds, so down on his average. Pretty good for anybody else, though. Let's go to Sheffield, where the Sharks were beaten by Cheshire Phoenix 56-77. Wallace into the starting lineup. Anderson off the bench, not very much off the bench, only 14 minutes, didn't score. Dickerson obviously out after that injury last week for Cheshire, and Knicks with an 11-4 run in the second quarter, which was the first real run of the game, and jumped out to a 10-point lead, 21-31.
I think you just picked out the two most significant factors in that game. I'm not sure what's happening at Sheffield now. Sheffield, obviously Sheffield kind of sneaked past the Spiral watch because I was watching Newcastle. And now Sheffield are sliding down probably even faster. They've gone from basically being a team which Anderson was brought in to run and did a fairly passable job of doing so for the first couple of months of the year with Retino and John Williams and those guys, and kind of playing a certain way. Then Glasgow came in, and Glasgow started off playing on the bench, coming off the bench, but he was so effective on the court that they needed to start him after a few games. That then kind of squeezed Williams out. And I think Williams may have been the type of character who was quite keen on being squeezed out. So I don't say that against the team or anything like that. I think, you've got to do what's right for your team. And then they obviously had to replace Williams, so they bring in the new fella. His name? William Wallace. Yeah, Braveheart. To bring him in, and kind of to my surprise, he came off the bench in the first game. He wasn't great. He was.
You've just gone a bit wild again there on me. He wasn't great, was it?
Anderson, first part of the season, he certainly wasn't great. Anderson has come in to run this team, and Wallace, who wasn't great in his first game, suddenly in the starting lineup, and Anderson's on the bench. And Anderson must be sitting on the bench thinking, well, what's happened? Suddenly they brought a guy over my head in Glasgow. I thought we were playing all right together, but now I'm coming off the bench. And the problem was he only played backup minutes in this game. He didn't combine with the starters at any other point. He came in at 2 minutes to go in the first quarter and played for about 4.5 minutes. And then he came in for, the same in the third quarter and played for a little bit. And that's not enough for a guy who's used to running a team to get himself into the rhythm of the game. Wallace, in the meantime, couldn't make a shot. He's a 40+% 3-point shooter, so he probably will make shots. But in this game, he couldn't make a shot from anywhere. Couldn't throw in the ocean. And obviously, Coke is down as well, so they're down a little bit in the front court as well, which meant at times there were lineups on the court with like Retino playing at the 4 spot. But even then, there was limited minutes for Glasgow and Anderson at the same time. So that is something to watch, because it just doesn't seem, something is going on there, because Anderson's done all right the first part of the season. And, you can bring someone off the bench, but you can blame them off the bench to play starters minutes. If you're a 6th man, you play starters minutes. You can sell that to a player. It's harder to do that if he's only playing 10 minutes in a game or 12 minutes in a game. And you don't get the productivity. Cheshire, the other way around. Suddenly all the clutter they had has disappeared. And it's disappeared in probably the best way for them, because McSwiggan's obviously gone off to be something else, or to take a break from the game, which has meant that minutes have opened up for Carey, which weren't there. And now Dickerson, who I don't think as a player he's been a problem, but as a component of a unit on the court, I don't think he's helped them, because I think he's killed their spacing with Ocherobia. I think it's very difficult to play him and Ocherobia at the same time. He's down, and I think that actually assisted them in this game. It gives them the same kind of London thing, the 4-out-1 in. It lets Ocherobia attack the rim, get to the front of the rim regularly without anybody else around him, and it gives driving lanes and shooting lanes for all the other guys. So yeah, I watched this game back. It was a little bit difficult to watch in the first half, to be honest. The camera doesn't help because every time there's a half decent transition play, you don't see it. But beyond that, it was a bit slow. And there was two teams. We were waiting for a team to take control of the game, but Cheshire's spacing was better because the Bradley Otsarobia combination is the one that fits the best. Out of all the players that they've got, it's the stretch four and the big five, and having Otsarobia in the game is perfect for Austin, because Austin is a guy who gets his head down and is never going to be never going to be guarded by the guy in front of him. He's always going to be guarded by the second guy.
Yeah,
it's always going to be the second guy who has to come across for Austin, because he's going to get to the rim in some way or the form. And the problem is, as soon as that second guy goes, Mike Otsarobia is under the rim. And if all Larry Austin has to do is to get the ball up on the rim, and it's a tap in or a layup or whatever for Otsarobia. So that kind of spacing and the system that they have, I think it really operates and works well for them. And as it showed in kind of the third quarter of this game.
Yeah. Well, Sheffield had got it back to 1 off threes from Nichols and Rotino, and then they had a 10-2 run to go out to 41-50 with 12 minutes to play. And then Nick started the fourth quarter with the first 8 points. Austin very aggressive in that spell. And suddenly it's 43-60 and game over, basically. Here's the one stat I wanted to share with you that I looked up from this game, up to and including the quarterfinal game that Glasgow hit the winner against Manchester. They were averaging 81 points per game, Sheffield. They were 6-4 through those 10 games. Since then, they are averaging 68 points a game, and they are 3-6. And the 3 are 2 against Plymouth, obviously when they were shorthanded than they are now. And I hesitate to say it, but also Newcastle as well.
Newcastle, yeah. And even that game's going back a while. That is a long time. Actually, that game is going back quite a while.
Yeah.
Well, the points, they were getting points out of Williams in games that they won. They were getting points out of Williams, and they were also getting a little bit out of Christophis off the bench. And obviously, he left because Glasgow came in as the second point guard. This game, I mean, if Rodney Glasgow actually hadn't stepped up and made some jump shots in this game, I'm not sure if Sheffield would have got to 50. Because their best offense was basically him shooting the ball off one dribble. Kipper Nichols made a few, but apart from that, nothing much there. And you're going to need to get something out of Wallace, big time. If you put him in the starting lineup in the second game, that means he can play. Or it means you've seen something in practice which says, okay, this is a guy that we're going to roll with. So that wing scorer they need, because Bertino's playing a lot of minutes and is worn down a little bit, I think. And their big guy, you've got Del Pesh now, but they haven't got Coke, and he often gives them a little bit of a boost as well. No, but they're in spiral watch. Yeah, absolutely. There are no easy wins. Even Surrey, there are no easy wins. And if a team is not the way it needs to be and hasn't figured itself out by now, most weeks it's going to be coming up against a team who has. That's the problem. In Cheshire, maybe by subtraction, maybe by hook or by crook, by luck, whatever, they are now a unit. And Kyle Carey in this game, by the way, was superb. And he hasn't played much to come off the bench. And it wasn't just that he made some shots. He scored. He probably didn't score that many points, but his energy, his defense, his intangibles, everything. I watched the one thing watching the game that struck me was how good he was in this game.
So Glasgow led the Sharks with 17-5. They only had 2 other players in double figures, 12 and 11 for Rotino and Nichols, 12 and 12 for Rotino. Bradley had 19 and 9, Wright 15, Austin 12 and 6, Ocherobia 11 and 12.
Sorry, and look, whoever's playing the soundtrack, Sheffield, all the party tracks in the first quarter that were going as the game was going on. No, sorry, no, not for me. Not for the purists.
It's a no from Dave.
It's a no from Dave. Here Rock and Roll came out. I mean, gee, that reminds me of the horrible days at Newcastle. he couldn't hear.
Well, you've gone roboty on me again there, and all I heard was horrible days. Let's move on to the other game while hopefully you come back into sync, which was down in Bristol.
Horrible days at Newcastle.
Yeah, down in Bristol. Bristol Flyers 64, Leicester Riders 92. I believe you called this one last week, Dave, and no Evans. So Antoine Johnson in the starting lineup for the Flyers. And I must confess, I said to Rowe on Friday that Bristol needs to be ready because I think Leicester are going to come out and punch them in the mouth in the first quarter. I went for 28 points. And when I looked, they had 27 points in 8 minutes or something. So I was feeling good, but they actually only ended up with 27 in the quarter. So I was just shy. But it was Whelan really that got them going. They were 12-7 down after 4 minutes, Leicester. And then Whelan with a couple of and ones, Jackson 3, Leicester go 13-0 and into the lead.
I actually thought it was the coach that got them going.
Okay.
Because if you did a split screen on Pablo was probably the same. Pablo Vasquez, Rob's assistant, probably the same every week. If you did a split screen on how vocal and how involved and how much on his feet and how much playing every play that Rob was compared to where he was last week, where he spent a lot of time sitting down. I thought that he lit a fire. He deliberately lit a fire under his team, but you can't just light the fire under your team. You have to be out there fighting the battle with them. And if you watch the game back, you will see, it's different. It's a totally different coaching persona that he adopted in this game. Even with the refs and with everything, he's within 30 seconds he's arguing a call, and that is a message to your team. Coaches don't do things for no reason. That is a message to your team, which is, I'm up for this, or you guys up for this. And it's always, I've been there. I know when you're at the top and teams, it kind of grades that when it grated with Flanoy horrendously, that when a team beat you, they celebrated like they won the league. Now, it's not to say they're not entitled to celebrate. Of course they are entitled to celebrate. It's actually the greatest compliment a team can pay.
Yeah.
But to a competitor, they don't necessarily, it's like, they won. Look at all that stuff, man. We've been doing this for 10 years. They win a game and they're running around the gym, And, so having this game the next week was a nightmare for Bristol. Absolute nightmare for Bristol. And beyond that, because hopefully, that the pain can dull after a while. Not it never goes away, but it can dull. Beyond that, losing their point guard was a double nightmare. Because putting in a guy who's played 2 games, who's on a month contract to run the point against Crandall and a motivated Leicester team, and expecting it just to kind of work, just not going to happen. So the only way Bristol can beat Leicester is to hold the game below kind of late 60s, early 70s. Anything more than that, Leicester are going to win, particularly without their 2 main guards, Miller and Evans. And Bristol just couldn't do that. Their word is on point defensively, because obviously, as whilst Leicester are more wound up, Bristol are also a little bit more relaxed, just a little bit, because you've beaten them. So you think you're not quite playing with that same immediate urgency. So the double teams on Walker were slow in this game, or came at the wrong point, or you've got to double him after he dribbles, not before he dribbles. You double, and you got to get there and crowd him. Then their offense was okay, and actually they played hard. Don't get me wrong, and actually I think they got back in the game in the third quarter, and you'll talk about that in a minute. But defensively, they weren't where they needed to be, and Patrick Whelan needs to be talked about, because he's putting himself very close to the GB team at the moment. Given the paucity of options, that's given the spot. That's probably the spot where we are at our most, not vulnerable, but where we have the most limited options. And the way he is playing at the moment is I think must be putting him very close to Mark Stewell's thoughts.
Well, he had 5 in an 8-2 finish to give Leicester a 13-point lead. He was 7 of 7 in the first half shooting. Flyers had a 13-2 run early in the third quarter, but Loving pushed it back out to 9, and then the decisive bit came around the final break for Leicester, where they got 13 points in a row and were 20 points up with 8 to play.
Yeah, I mean, two things. One with Whelan is he's one of those guys who his shot just looks like it's going in.
Yeah.
It just looks like it's going in. His feet are set. His form is absolutely grooved. In every shot is basically the same shot. So, whether he's got the size or the athleticism to play the three at kind of the higher level, I'm not sure. But he is perfect for them at the moment. There was actually a play because Bristol made some shots and they got back in the game and Rob was getting ever more animated, so it was quite entertaining. There's actually a play. It was a play that Crandall made, which really the kind of little plays which separate teams. And he got himself an offensive rebound out of nowhere and was kind of trapped towards the corner. And he threw it all the way across court to Loving in the other corner. Loving knocked down the three. Loving hadn't made a shot up to that point, but Crandall got an offensive rebound, made a play, found his shooter. Suddenly, next time down, Loving makes another one. Game done. Because Bristol, just like last week, the moment that Leicester got ahead, he couldn't see Bristol winning. They never got ahead. Once they get up 9 or 10, Bristol just didn't have the offense. They're playing guys who've only been there short periods of time, inexperienced. Notice is playing. Josh Rogers hasn't scored the ball much recently. Samuels is having to play a lot more. They've got a point guard his numbers were all right, but he's nowhere near up to speed with what they need to do to beat the motivated best team in the league. And the game kind of went away from Bristol from then on.
Johnson had 17 points, but was a minus 29 in 31 minutes, just to the point you made a little earlier.
28-point game though, so.
Yeah. The Delpesh 16, Jacob 13, 2 of 11 shooting. They were 22 of 70 shooting as a team. Whelan finished with 25 points, 8 of 10 shooting. Loving 13 and 6. Mackenzie 13 off the bench. Crandall 6, 9 and 12. I haven't done a Claxon for a little while. This was the one that I picked up on because I watched this game back on Synergy. So I just went and had a look at the box stats that they put on there and then compared it to last week. And interestingly, the possessions were almost identical. Leicester had 3 more possessions this week than they did last week. So Bristol had 91 possessions and Leicester had 86 this week, 83 last week. The points per possession, Bristol were very slightly down, 0.78 down to 0.70. Leicester went from 0.82 to 1.07. So that's a quarter of a point every time they got the ball better off this time around, Leicester.
Yeah, and that's the only way Bristol could beat them last week, holding them to that type of number. Because to be fair, Bristol are a good defensive team, but too many things against them in this game. Too many things against him in this game, as I say. But yeah, go back and just watch your man Paternoster on the sideline. Our man, whatever, whoever man he is.
I'm sure it
on the sideline in this game because the problem is when you're watching the Leicester home games, the camera's across the court, so you don't see, you're miles away. The camera's miles away, so he's kind of a little kind of mushy type of silhouette. But in the Bristol, the camera is right behind the coaches and everything that's going on. You see every time Andreas turns around to the bench,
or he's challenging a shot,
challenging stuff. You see it all, and I thought it was really, an example of lighting a fire under your team and saying, this isn't happening again.
Yeah. Let's move on to today's game. Manchester Giants 77, Plymouth City Patriots 84. Really good weekend for the Patriots. Technically 4 games in a row, if you want to count the Bristol friendly as well that they've won. Nothing really 3 in a row if you don't, 2 in a row if you don't want to count the trophy.
The Welsh game,
But they're all on the board. That's the important thing.
True.
Nothing really in the first quarter. I think the most significant play of the first quarter was the last, where you couldn't quite see it on the camera, but I'm sure it was Kofi shooting. He went to the free throw line, so he got a 4-point play. It gave them the lead, but it also it gave Kofi that thing. Yeah.
Because up until this point, this weekend, I think he had 6 air balls. If you count the Friday night game as well. Yeah, I mean, firstly, you almost questioned me last week when I said Manchester wouldn't win the league. You know, I mean, how we?
I was just on behalf of Giants fans out there.
Okay. Well, this is part of the reason, because they're a young team and they've got the grind of getting up for every game and not having that target on your back is not quite where they're at yet. I mean, it's, as I say, I like PJ's move. I like the bench that he's bringing on. They kind of play through Williams and Hassan early, and they've got Ubiaro's energy and hard steadiness, and they're trying to get the ball to Hassan to score the ball, and then they kind of bring in the guys who are the other veterans in the league, and Dusha and Graham Bell's energy as well. So yeah, and Manchester weren't really there. They made a few shots, but they missed a few shots. Dan Clark didn't get going early. Lloyd's is having to try to kind of integrate David Ulf back in, but he doesn't really quite fit what they've been doing for the season, because they've been playing 5 out most of the season. And David Ulf's kind of he's a roller and a rebounder. So it's not going to be easy, and he hasn't got much time because he's got a cup final coming, so he's going to have to decide whether or not Ulf's going to be playing in that cup final. And these are decisions you have to, when you get into cup finals.
So Dave, you dropped out. You've come back now. You were about to tell us about Manchester and the things they've got to think about in the cup final.
Yeah, because the cup final weighs on you. It's a big game, and particularly when you're playing against a team that you haven't played against, and you've got to try and deal with the present and deal with the future. So Lloyd's having to deal with David Ulf and how he fits him back into the system, because he's got a lot of players. He's also having to deal with the question as to, does he need another guard? If he gets another guard, what kind of guard is it? How's he going to fit in, because they haven't got many games to go because Mark Knight's gone. And you've got to try and keep winning in the meantime. And against that, you come up against a Plymouth team who's on the rise. And there are times in the BBL season, in the cycle of a BBL season, where teams on the rise or teams on the fall. And it's only the very, very best teams that are kind of constantly at that level point. So, playing Plymouth now as opposed to playing Plymouth a month ago is a totally different proposition. The schedule really makes a difference. And then on top of that, you have the kind of the propitious nature of shot makers, and you have Kofi, who in the second quarter just went off.
He just went mad. He fired them to a 17-3 start to the quarter. So they were 15 up, and then they got another 9 in a row, and it's 28-50. And that's the sort of lead that you think, oh, even if they have a wobble here, they've got some comfort room.
Yeah, I mean, they always had, we've talked all season, they had the problem of scoring. Well, Hassan is probably the most reliable scorer in the entire league.
Yeah.
Certainly in, probably the first 37 minutes of games, I would suggest. So he's going to get his, he's going to be effective in what he does. You then add the fact that you've got a point guard who's an athlete who's able to get to the rim in Williams. And you've got a wing shooter in Josephs. That's 3 guys who can put up 80 in a game. And that means that what you then need to be is to be solid defensively. And to be fair, they've been solid defensively all year.
Yeah.
Times the transition's not been great, but they've been solid. That's predicated on their bad offense. So they've been solid defensively all year. So it doesn't take much for that to happen. And Raoul Graham Bell has helped them. He's different guy to the guy I saw at Leeds when he was literally jumping 12 feet above the rim and dunking everything. But he's learned how to play. He's different body type now, but he's learned how to play. And he's learned how to make important winning plays. So you add all that together, you had a smart coach in there, and they're not an automatic win for anybody. And Manchester found that out tonight before they probably believed it.
Yeah.
And as you say, a 22-point lead. And then in the second half, Manchester did pick up the defense a little bit, particularly in the fourth quarter, but then obviously knocked down some shots.
Yeah, I thought in the third quarter, they looked like they were going to make a run, and then Hassan just kept the scoreboard ticking over. And then in the fourth quarter, when it was real, there was 2 real pressure moments where the building was up. It felt like Plymouth were just struggling a little bit, couldn't get to the line quick enough. And Dusha hit a 3 both times.
Yeah, for those who are interested in coach watching, go to the BBL player at about the 5-minute mark and watch PJ's face when on 2 occasions they totally blow the coverage on Dan Clark. I think it was probably Hassan, because it was Hassan that he pulled over afterwards. But I was giving him the double T part, that what's going on, we're up by 14 and we're standing there and we're being attracted to Armstrong so he can throw the ball to Dan Clark for a 3. And just have a look at PJ's face. It's fantastic. I loved it. I really did. But it's kind of the thing, when you're a fan and you look at it and you're watching a game, that ball goes in and you look at the guy who shoots it and you look at the But when you've been on a bench, you just look at the coach and think, oh, he's not going to take that well, Oh, what's he going to say to him? Oh, everything becomes a mistake, And Dan Clark made 2 threes. He got them down to 8, and that was the point. And what they did was, I think LVC, he threw it into Hassan twice, and they doubled too quickly on Hassan. And they threw, in second time, he threw it back to LVC, and LVC shot off the catch, And you have to see, Hassan's actually not a guy in the fourth quarter you want to double if he gets the ball in the low block outside of the paint. You want to make him probably go baseline, send some bodies then. But they doubled him because he'd beaten them all game. So they decided they had to double him, and they doubled off the ball, and they beat them. And the only thing after that, which is interesting in the game, was a bizarre unsportsmanlike foul at the end, which I don't know what Paul Walton saw, but I don't think it was on the camera, because I don't know if you saw it.
No, I didn't see it.
Well, it got to 7 point. It was a 7-point game, and Williams is dribbling the ball down the wing, and Hudson is doing his with about 30 seconds to go, and Hudson is doing his very best to foul him, probably twice, and then the third time, almost like Jack Hudson kind of put it as he's turning the corner on the baseline. He's trying to foul him to stop the clock, put his shoulder into him, and Paul Walton's on the baseline called him sportsmanlike foul, and to everybody's astonishment, he called it on Williams. So I don't know what you saw, but I saw it on Hudson. Anyway, I'm sure we'll get an explanation through.
And there was a little something at the end as well, because those two were chatting away on that last inbound with 2 seconds to go, and then after the buzzer, there was a bit of a coming together.
It was all a bit weird.
Be worth seeing. Then I don't know when they next play, but whether any of that carries over or not. But anyway. Clark with 15 points, Whelan with 12, Hassan with 23 points, 10 of 14 shooting. Kofi had 20, all of them in the first half. Williams 12 and 9 assists.
Good job. Sorry, good job. Again, you look at an experienced coach. Kofi had 20, but with 5 minutes to go in the game, he shot a couple of air balls, a couple of bad shots. He wasn't in rhythm. PJ pulled them out. It'd be easy to ride the guy and keep him playing, play through that. And PJ is not doing that. PJ knows what he's got with Kofi. He has to ride him when he's hot. And if he's not going to take the right shots, then PJ is going to put somebody in who's going to make the right play. So I thought that was really smart coaching as well.
It was, yes. Final game of the weekend was in Cheshire, and it finished Phoenix 107, Glasgow 87. No Ali Fraser for the Rocks. Dickerson obviously still out. Knicks with the first 8 points. Rocks came back with 13 too. Just a ton of threes in this game, particularly for the Knicks. They made 5 in a 21-2 run.
Yeah, and it's just two teams who are literally like unclogged. There are no ball stoppers on the team. There are no guys who are taking up the space in the middle, apart from the ones who are meant to. So it was basically 2 mirror image teams, but Cheshire had more bodies, a little bit more rhythm. And the first 3 words that you said there are the most important. No Ali Fraser, who's averaging the best part of 20 a game. To the point whereby Boban Jack Donnelly's been playing 3 minutes a game, and now suddenly he's starting the game and he's expected to kind of beat Ali Fraser. Now, when you throw in the fact on top of that they haven't got they're down in American after Tyrell Green got hurt, so he's not there. So it's not near as the full team. Johnny Bunyan was very gingerly running laps of the arena. It looked like certainly half laps of the court before the game, which made me think that he isn't in best health either. And they just looked a little bit beaten up, and even Jordan Johnson looked a bit beaten up in the way that he played the game. But Cheshire are the opposite. They are they're back to bringing Austin off the bench, which I like, because I think it is, I think to be a great team or a very good team, you have to have a great six man. And you have to have a six man who can change the game, who can impact the game, who can score, who can give the basketball to, who can take over in whatever way he does. Okorafor is shooting the ball. Okorafor is, it's crazy to say this because he's come out of a high level college program. He's played in Greece, A1. He's played in other leagues as well, other decent leagues in Europe. Yeah, actually coming to the BBL has actually unlocked him. It's unlocked his skill set. He's now, the first couple of, he's now, as soon as somebody goes under a screen, he's taking a dribble, he's shooting it, and he looks like he's expecting to make it. He doesn't have any qualms about shooting the basketball, and that makes him so much more a better player. I say it's unlocked his talent. I'm not saying he wasn't talented. I'm saying he's playing better. It's just he's a different type of point guard, and he's showing himself up to be a more impactful type of point guard, not just having to throw the ball at guys who make plays. And obviously Mockford up and down, but when he was on today, coming off curls and making shots. In Glasgow, they kind of had enough bodies to play offense, but they didn't really have enough bodies to play defense. I didn't think they made a tremendous. They don't have much rim protection anyway. One point in the second quarter, Murray Hendry, who was the last guy off the bench for them, really is playing centre. He's playing the 5 spot. Gareth got a couple of early fouls as well, and they kind of stayed in it because they made some shots.
Hillsman made 5 threes.
5 threes in a row, yeah. I think after the third one, again, unfortunately, we don't see the Knicks camera. You don't see the coaches as much on the cameras. But after the third one, I was wanting a fix. I was wanting to place a close-up on Ben Thomas's face. After the 5th one, I think I'd like to have seen a close-up of his clipboard being thrown on the floor. Because the guy can shoot, and he was shooting shots which were rhythm shots. He kind of shoots a set shot. He doesn't shoot a jump shot. So it should be possible to run him off. So yeah, he made some shots and he kept them in it. But you always got that impression it was going to be a scoring race, and team gets to 95 at home. The rules.
Well, the Rocks got the last 7 points of the first half, so they were only 6 down at halftime. But then Namon Wright had 7 as the Knicks hit the first 16 points of the third quarter to lead 73-51, and that was the ball game there.
Well, yeah, it brings it just fits because you have Bradley, who's your kind of your stretch four. You have Ocharobia, who is your center plugger, and as I've talked about already, your rebounder and your finisher at the rim, and he's very reliable. You know exactly where he's going to be, and he's actually better. He's probably playing the best he's ever played in relation to his health, his athleticism, his hands, which all knocks on him. Whether he was his lack of turnovers. So he's playing great. But then you have Austin. So all the spacing is right. They've got the guard handling the ball. They've got Mockford and Wright attacking. They've got Bradley stretching the floor, and you've got the big guy cleaning up in the middle. But then you have Austin. Austin reminds me of Gores. We had Paul Gores.
Yeah.
We had Paul Gores, and Paul was the 6th man. You wonder why he did what he was going to do in 25 minutes. He didn't need him for 40 minutes. He would, when the game came, when he was in the game became Gores centric because he was so impactful in that time. And Austin reminds me of him. His ability to get in the passing lanes, to get steals, and if he gets a steal, it's a layup at the other end, to get to the rim, and he's got Ocharobia there, who's, as they're finishing everything else off. It means that offensively they become very, very potent. And when you add in, Carey's athleticism in transition as well, that's a pretty strong 7-man rotation. And that's, at this point in the season, a good 7 beats an average 9.
Yeah.
If you've got that good, and that's where they're at today. And Glasgow I think Glasgow are similar to that, fully formed, because that's the way they were built, but they're not fully formed.
No, and they might be less fully formed with the injury to Hillsman in the second half.
I think he came back. He
came back in and then went.
Did he go off again?
Yeah,
it didn't look great. It looked like a groin, didn't it?
Groin,
It looked like a groin, and that's not good. And on top of that, we have to also bear in mind with Glasgow. I have no idea what their practice situation is with the whole COVID thing in Scotland, because obviously the Scots are a little bit less laissez-faire. Not throwing as many parties. as we are.
No.
Yeah.
Right. Name on right with 22 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 blocks.
Yeah.
Teddy had 18 and 7, Mockford 17 and 5. They had 7 guys with 10 or more points, and they were 11 of 24 from 3. They missed a few.
And to be honest, Wright missed a few that he would otherwise get back a bit in the third quarter. And I think I said a few weeks ago again, they need to find a way of unlocking Wright. That's a big thing. And if they're able to do that, then there isn't kind of a minutes choke with all the other guys, and they're all in a natural rhythm and they're all playing the natural minutes. Now the issue is going to be if Dickerson comes back, because Dickerson comes back, you get something, but you also lose stuff. And how do you balance what you're losing with what you're getting? What minutes does he play? Does he play instead of Ocharobia? Does he play with Ocharobia? That's going to be a bit of a puzzle for the coach.
Hillsman was 6 of 6 for 3 for 21 points before his injury. Harris 20, Jack Domney 19 and 10.
He can play. No question. He can play. He's solid. He's got a nice touch inside. I think he wears down a little bit. But then again, they're not expecting him to play 40. And he didn't get any really daft fouls in this game. So there's definitely something there, but it's all a bit weird when someone's playing 4 minutes 1 week and having to play the full game the next. He was,
a quick look at the table before we leave, and it is super weird in the fact that the team that we would both think are nominally in second place are in 8th place. But we'll go through it anyway.
2 teams that can win the league are currently in 1st and 8th. Yeah. Great, isn't it? BBL, love it.
Leicester are 9-0, which is equals their best start to a league campaign. Giants are in 2nd on 7 and 4. Sharks 5 and 4 in 3rd. Phoenix 5 and 7 in 4th. Bristol 4 and 3. Glasgow 4 and 4. Newcastle 4 and 6. London 3 and 2. And then outside the playoffs, Plymouth off the bottom now with 2 wins and 8 defeats, and Surrey last with 1 and 6. So it feels like there's London will catch back up with Leicester, and they'll be sort of 1st and 2nd. But then there's a morass of Manchester, Sheffield, Bristol, Glasgow, all on all on 4 losses is what I was going to say, 3 or 4 losses. But some of them with some question marks and some of them not.
Yeah, well, there's some there's a point. There was a point in the league table whereby you don't look at losses. I look at wins instead of losses. And every year it's a different kind of point. It might be the top 3, it might be the top 6 or whatever. Because for teams towards the kind of the middle end or the bottom end, the wins are actually more important than the losses, because you may not need to win more than you lose to get into the playoffs. At the moment, the only 2 teams I'm looking at losses are Leicester and London. Everybody else, I think every win that you get is going to be clawed for, is going to get you up there. And maybe it would have been Manchester as well until tonight. But I'm looking at, if you've got 4 wins, or if you've got 7 wins, and then you're doing okay.
Next best has 5.
Next best has 5. So that's kind of as you say, the morass of teams. I mean, it might make for interesting basketball, but then again, there's not much jeopardy. And there's not that much difference finishing, 3rd or finishing 6th in the format of the playoffs, which has always been a bugbear of mine. I've tried to get it changed multiple times, that we don't have, playoffs which reward the league positioning a little bit more than they do. So I think it makes it more interesting and more exciting towards the end of the season if you've got a tangible reward. But they don't. So there we go. There's a lot of each club at this point in time is kind of entwined in their own storyline. And that's a really big thing. So you could go all the way down the league. You go with Leicester, obviously now they're utterly focused on the league because they're out of the trophy. They got the cup final, I get that, but they've been to enough cup finals to know what that's about. So it's not like Manchester. And after that, it's just, there's league because the trophy's gone. You got London, who've got the European thing, and also they've got the trophy now to focus on as well. They've got to play a ton of games, basically. That's what they're focused on. Manchester, who are just basically cup final orientated at this point, they have to be. Sheffield, who are fighting a spiral. Cheshire, who are on the way up, but they've got to reintegrate other players. Sheffield, Newcastle, who are obviously on a massive spiral, and they've got to work out what they're going to do. Plymouth on the way up. Bristol need to be healthy, fighting for health. You know how quickly are they going to get healthy? Which way are they going to go? They're a team that's on the cusp. What is their identity? Is it going to be that defensive team? Can they get enough healthy bodies on the court to be that defensive team? And Surrey, can they find a way of getting some cohesion? I think that's everybody.
I'm not sure you mentioned Glasgow, did you?
Glasgow just need to get some bodies.
Yeah.
Glasgow, as I say, Glasgow's a difficult one because they haven't played many games recently. They're in COVID in Scotland. They've missed Ali Fraser today. They're missing another US guy. I just think that they're kind of, if anyone's going to make adjustments or allowances for anybody, you're going to make it for Glasgow.
3-0 at home, 1-4 away. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. And then the 1-4, you get into your points difference thing with that. I don't think the 1-4 will be pleasant.
No, I don't think
it'll be quite a significant negative, unfortunately. All right. So yeah.
Well, we don't like to wrap up on a negative, but I think we ought to before the Gremlins come back and bite us again.
Yeah, apologies. I think it's my fault, but there you go.
Well,
it's the anniversary weekend. It's the anniversary weekend.
Fighting
back at me. That's it. You would do this on your anniversary weekend. The internet will not play its part. Yeah.
Indeed. So Dave and I will leave you there. Have a great week, and we will be back next Sunday night to do it all over again. But for now, goodbye.